I'm here today because I want to talk to you about the state of our industry and where I believe we can go, because I truly believe that the majority of us that are here at SAIA are here because we're passionate about our industry. We love what we do, we love our industry, and we truly care about it. The problem is our industry has ended up in this situation. And this is too often times, I mean, how many of you agree that this is what it feels like when we get out to a job site? Right? It's like, oh, it's the scaffold guys again. And we're overlooked, where you get the phone call, hey, remember that bid on the building that I gave you a year ago? Yeah. Can you build that next week? And they really just, they look at us and they treat us like an afterthought. They know about the need for a scaffold a year ahead, but they won't call you until they need it tomorrow. And they don't consider us as a skilled craft. Does that bother anybody else? Because, I mean, we are a very skilled craft, but we are not treated like one. We're treated like a day labor hall. And the truth of the matter is, what we all know, why we come here is, and I loved the previous presentation, is we are the special forces of the construction and industrial industry. We're the first ones in, we're the last ones out, we go where no one else wants to, and we make the success of the operation possible. They can't get there without us. We get all the special provisions in the OSHA standards because there's just no telling how we're going to get where we need to get so that we can provide access to somebody. So I began to think about this, and the question becomes why? Why are we an afterthought? Why are we treated this way in the industry? So sometimes a long look in the mirror is what gives the answers that you're asking for. And it's this way because we've made it this way. As an industry, we allow it to be this way. Everyone needs scaffold, but they hate dealing with it. We're wrapped up in our own world and our ROIs and our P&Ls and our quarterly reports and, answering to the CEO, why our margins aren't where they need to be, what are we going to do to get them there? And so what's happened in our industry is we've become too price-driven. And I know that sounds contradictory because we're all in business to make money, right? I mean, we're not here to just give product away. But when you become too price-driven, you end up being treated the way we're treated. And what we really need to realize is this scale of price and value. And that the sale is not just about the price. We need to stop being so oriented and focused and driven on price and more on the quality and the customer impact. And that's what has really yielded to a lot of the success that I've been seeing at where I'm at and where I've been, is that we stop seeking the job and we start seeking the customers, the relationships. We stop chasing after the giant $1.5 million job and bam, look at this giant job we did, and we start giving just as much attention to the customer that has the $10,000 job or the $5,000 job, and he calls you up and he's really in need, and it got thrown on him at the last minute, and we're able to help him out a little bit. We don't give it away. Of course we have to make a margin on it. But if he feels like we're really there for him, then when he gets the $1.5 million scaffold job, who's he going to call? When he feels like you're invested in his success, that we have customers that relay that to us all the time, is, man, we're really appreciated because we can feel that you're truly interested in our success. And we convey that to them, and we make sure that they understand and they believe that. So before we get too far into that, there's multiple ways that we can accomplish this, but we got to look at what's happened to our industry. And so we need to understand a balanced approach. And there's different ways that we go into pricing because, let's face it, pricing is a huge part of what we do. So we start with a cost-based price model, right? And unfortunately, this is really where a lot of us are at. And I know a lot of you have worked for people. Well, how much does that cost? Okay, add 35%. That's it. That's how you price it. And the problem with this is that a cost-based pricing alone, by itself, it may be popular, and it's easy to calculate. It's generally objective. There's not a lot of variable in it. It brings a predictable margin, and it doesn't require too much effort to be put in place. So that's why a lot of people do it. It's pretty easy. We just add 35%. There it is. But a cost-based pricing is also, while it's justifiable to the customers, it's just very straightforward. The drawback is that it only takes the internal cost into consideration, and it doesn't consider things like a customer's willingness to pay a premium. How many of you have experienced that? If you have a better product or a better service, are they willing to pay a higher price for better service, for a better product? And many customers are. But if you're strictly cost-price driven, you lose that. The next one we have is the market-based competition. And this moves beyond the cost base, and it looks externally to incorporate pricing analysis of the market and to set prices. But the drawback of this approach is it doesn't consider the customer's willingness to pay the premium, just like cost base. So many times we can leave money on the table because we're pricing based on our competitors and what's going on in the market. And competitors can taint the market. And so this scheme, it becomes unreliable and it drives prices to an unmanageable low. How many of you have ever gone up against the competitor and you find out later that they just gave the rent away? I had that happen in person. We were at a customer. We were looking at a price, to price out a job. They were in an emergency, and we get done, and of course they give the same spiel you always get. Hey, this got thrown on us in the last minute. The budget's really, really tight. What can you do for us? And my competitor that was standing there next to me, in front of me, looked at him and he said, well, we can help you out on this. We'll just provide the rent and charge you for the labor. I'm thinking, really? He said that right in front of me. And so in front of him, when the customer looked at me with these eyes like, well, what can you do? I said, I'm just kind of curious in today's market why you would have to give the rent away. Because at the time, the market was booming. Companies were giving jobs away. This was just a couple years ago. And I got a phone call later that evening, and he said, hey, we've decided to go with you. Your comment was right. There's something wrong if you have to give me something for free in today's market. And so, customers identify that. So, companies that are able to just say, oh, well, I'm going to give you the rent away, they can poison the market. So if all you're doing is trying to beat your competitor's price, that can really, really taint the market, and all it succeeds in doing is driving our pricing down. There's a delicate balance here that we're trying to find to where, yeah, we provide a lower price to our customer and things, but we keep the market up. And if we're all doing our jobs together, if we're all doing our jobs individually and we're striving for a balanced approach, we will drive the market up. And our prices will go up, not just because of reasons like right now where labor's going up and so I don't have a choice but to charge more money, but we can drive it up for value reasons. Oop, I went the wrong way. And that brings in the third model, and that's a value-based pricing. And value-based pricing considers the customer's willing to pay when you're setting the price with good service and good product being included in that. So a drawback to this, it can be harder to implement, but the payoff is way worth it. And when I say it can be harder to implement, if you're not the owner or the top guy, you have to convince them that, yeah, we're going to price a little higher because we believe our value is going to pay off in the end, okay? And it can be hard. But if we can bring all of these together at the same time, we end up with a balanced business management, okay? And this occurs when I consider my cost, I consider the market, and then I also consider the value base. And when I can get all those together and I can find that sweet spot, that's when we can begin to drive the market back up, and we can earn some respect in our pricing, because otherwise we just end up like a cattle auction. I don't know how many of you have been to a cattle auction, but it's, you know, who can buy the cattle at the cheapest price, you know, and that's what we turn into. So there's ways to move forward. And so, you know, we've identified where we're at in industry. We've identified the mentality that people have about our industry, GCs and, you know, our customers. And we may have great relationships with our customers. Some companies have great relationships with their customers because they do fishing trips a couple times a year. And if that's how you want to do business, then that's how you're going to do business. I think those kinds of things should be more of, hey, we appreciate your loyalty to us as a customer. We appreciate, you know, what you've done, and so let's get together and let's go somewhere. Not on the front end of negotiating the maintenance contract and the week before the decision's made, let's go to the Bahamas and spend a week and whatever. There's a word for people that sell their stuff like that. But there are ways to move forward, and it's small internal operational changes is where we can really have a big impact. So how many of your foremen or supervisors or construction managers have a desk that look like that? Right? Especially the foremen, because these poor guys are out traveling, and so they carry this little box with all their papers in it, and then when you get all the paperwork you need, it's coffee and wrinkled and ripped and tore up and everything. So, you know, paperwork becomes an issue. So this is one of the things that I identified, and I figured that we could really make a change. And so I began to digitize our paperwork. The first thing I did, all the paperwork that we do, from foreman to our proposals, everything we do, we turn it into a fillable PDF. We invest a little bit in our foreman, and we get them all a small tablet-type computer. I'm not going to promote any one type over the other. And then we moved all of our paperwork filing into the cloud. You can use OneDrive or whatever. There's lots of different ones. And it's just like a filing cabinet. And what we discovered, and now this is moving across the whole company platform. It started with just our little scaffold division, and now I'm going around and showing the rest of the company, hey, this is how we do this. Because when you start doing things like dealing with the auditors from the banks and stuff, and they want your paperwork, it's just so easy to find. It's, oh, well, it's in OneDrive. Just go, and there it is, however your filing system works. And the foremen really, really appreciate this in the field, because they're no longer trying to keep up with all kinds of paperwork, right? It's all right here on their little tablet or computer that you have. The guys all fill it out. They sign in. They have, you know, stylists so that they can sign it where signatures are required. And then when they're done, at the end of the day, they go home and they email their paperwork to the construction manager, and he files it away in the cloud. Fantastic. And they feel ownership. Now, here's where the neat part of it is. Your customer sees it, and he appreciates it, because when he wants paperwork, be it your JHAs or your safety or your job logs or whatever, T&M sheets and whatever it is you have to deal with him, it's all organized. It's quick. It's easy. It's right there. So your customer sees that, hey, man, these people got their stuff together. They're organized. They appreciate their foreman that's out here in the field working with me. He's not just another guy that's bringing in revenue for them. And so your customer, and this is where we started with this, begins to put some value on you as someone who can help them. So they know they don't have to chase you down for all the different paperwork and things like that anymore. So then I started looking at, how can we climb a little higher? What are things we can do to climb a little higher? Well, I was privileged to be in a sales seminar type thing that my company put on one time. And the guy was phenomenal. And what he did was he taught us that everybody's in sales. And who's the biggest salesman isn't your salesman. It's the guys that are on the job doing the work. Those are your biggest salesmen. So if you don't have that squared away, you're already behind the 8 ball. So you can go in as a sales guy and talk a great game, get the people where you want them to be, sell them everything in the world, and they see all the value in it. But then they're thinking, yeah, but I see how you operate. You know? And that begins with, do your people feel valued, invested in, appreciated? And so when I started my own company, my poor wife was scared to death because I left the company I was working for. I went home and I said, hey, I found some investors. I'm starting my own company. I quit today. She said, you did what? And I said, yeah. I said, I guess we're fixing to find out if all these things that I keep saying, man, why don't they do this? I guess we're going to find out if I'm right. And man, with all the blessings, I guess we found out on some of it, I was not right. And I learned it the hard way. But the majority of it, I discovered, hey, yeah, I was right. Here's one for you. How many jobs do you send a new saw and drill out to, and then they don't come back? So how many saws and drills and impact drills do you buy every year because of that? There's just almost no accountability. You try. So there's different things you can do, because when your people feel invested in, they will represent you the way you want to be represented. They'll represent you the way you present yourself. So one of the things we did is we bought all of our foremen a full set of tools. Whatever type you want, I don't care. The colors give it away. I try to get rid of the name. But, you know, you buy them a full set of tools. You serial number each tool. They sign a paper that says, yes, this is mine. If I don't bring it back other than normal wear and tear, then the cost of it comes out of my check. Fantastic. Same thing you do with harnesses or anything else. But now, you know how many drills I've lost in 4 years? 1. And that was like a week after we started the program. 1 drill in 4 years. So yeah, I spent a lot of money up front, but what did I save in the long run? And so are you willing and able to look past that immediate expenditure right now? Because that was the excuse. Oh, we can't spend all those prices. I've been trying to get my employers for years to, hey, why don't you get us all sets? You know, I mean, you can sign them out to us. No, that costs too much money. Okay, buy 50 drills a year then. Another thing we did, and I got this from a good friend of mine, was the cameras. And we didn't, I mean, I was always taking pictures. We all take pictures of the loads when they go out and when they come in, right? We might snap pictures of our scaffolds. But I got each of my foremen one of these neat 3D cameras, 360 cameras. And so at the end of the job, they get the customer to sign off and checklist everything. Yep, we accept it, you know, and that protects them and it protects us. And then my foreman has to walk the scaffold with the camera. So that, you know, I don't know, you come to me later as a customer and you say, well, we got handrails that you left out. Well, I can go in and show you. No, I don't. They were there when we left. Here's the film. Because those 360 cameras are really cool. You can look all the way around, up, down. That's why they're 360. And again, how do you think my foreman felt when they got this piece of equipment? And it's not that much. I mean, they're really not that expensive. They're really affordable now. But now my foreman's like, man, I got this cool piece of equipment. And yeah, some responsibility comes with it. And so he begins to take a little more ownership. How do you think my customers feel when you start sharing this with them, the 360 videos, and your vendors, right? Why do we always forget about our vendors? You know, if we have good relationships with our vendors, they'll support us better, and then they'll help us support our customers better, right? And so all of a sudden, as an industry, we begin to work cohesively, and we begin to elevate our industry up to gain the respect of an industry that we believe we deserve. You know, another little thing I did, I got this from a good friend of mine as well, Sean, is I bought all my foremen little $20 anemometers and lightning detectors. because, we work on big lightning rods every day. So Florida, that's probably a good thing to have. So very minimal cost. But how do your foremen feel? Man, they got this good gear. And so what happens is all of this begins to relate into efficiency and savings. Yes, it's a little upfront cost, but in the long run, it's a huge amount of savings. So these things, they don't have to be out of your budget. You don't have to be a technical genius to use them. They're all pretty easy. We don't even have an IT guy at the company I work for, so guess who gets that by default? But it's amazing. I got foremen out there that couldn't turn on a computer when they started. Now they're emailing their paperwork and putting it in OneDrive, and just because we invested in them just a little bit. They're pretty smart. They can learn if you take the time to teach them. And so it goes into your efficiency, and then it turns into your savings, and it's well worth it. And I know that, how many of us sit around and we have meetings to plan what we're going to do this year, right? One of my favorite sayings comes from Dwight Eisenhower. Plans are nothing. Planning is everything. And I like this because it clearly spells out why budgets, resource plans, schedules, charts, potentially, they're useless. It's the thought process that goes into preparing the plans and the resulting action that's important, not the document that was produced. Because we can shift money from one job that did really, really good to another job that didn't so good, and we can make things look great. I mean, that's the great thing about math. If you just put the numbers in a different column, it looks great, but the bottom line's still what it is. But the method to our planning, if we get honest with it, and we begin to realize that our planning, the method of our planning, the thought process that behind it is to do things like have our people feel appreciated, to where we know they're not going to jump ship when the other company calls and says, hey, we'll pay you $2 or more for this outage we're doing, and then all of a sudden you're replacing 5 people because that crew all went for $2 an hour more. I've got people that'll tell you they've turned down $2, $3, and $4 an hour more to stay with our company because they've never worked for a company where they've been appreciated like they are with us. And consequently, they work really, really hard, and we are doing massive amounts of work with an amazingly small amount of full-time employees. I can't really get into the numbers on that, but I can tell you that you guys kind of see the work we do if you look at our LinkedIn page, stuff like that. I've got 8 full-time field employees, and we're accomplishing what we accomplish, okay? And they will bend over backwards. They'll jump off a cliff for me if I wanted them to, and it's because they feel appreciated. And yes, I have put my tools on and jumped out there with them once in a while, just to let them know the old man can still do it. Some other things we do is we invest up front. One of the neat things that we do is I like to implement AutoCAD. The vendor I work with has a neat plug-in program for it. And so when we're doing, simple multifamily home projects or something like that, pretty easy, pretty quickly. I have a drafter now that can do it. But we'll draw the scaffold out for them. And so we don't just send them out with a print. We send them out with a 3D model that they can spin around on their tablet like you're looking at here, and they can get in really close. They can see all the little details. And so, yeah, but look at all that upfront money in the office. Yeah, but look at their productivity. Instead of showing up with 2 or 3 truckloads of material and telling the foreman, all right, do your layout and then tell me what material you need when you're done. Again, all of this translates into what the customer sees happening on his job site. And you end up with a lot of customers like I have that will just tell you straight up, we don't even entertain prices from other companies anymore, unless it's a public bid. I have a lot of customers that's it. They go with us. And it's because they see that we have our stuff squared away. Think about it as a customer. If this company treats their employees this way, how are they going to treat me? Right? So, how do we become valuable to our customers? Well, the model was one way to do it. But communicate with your customers. You know, I had a customer who has turned into a very large customer, and they told us point blank, man, we just really appreciate that when we send you a bid package, you call us and ask us details on it. Because everybody else, we just get a number back, so we just kind of feel like a number. And then they end up, when they get out in the field, oh, we didn't realize you wanted this. Oh, we got to modify that now because we didn't realize that the scope was that. Because they didn't even bother to ask the questions. How silly is that? And then we get upset because we're not treated like a skilled craft. Would a carpenter come in and build some custom cabinets or banisters in your house without sitting down and talking to you about what your desires are that you're looking for? He's just going to come in and do it the way he wants. You wouldn't hire somebody to do that. Customer relationships are built on service, not just rapport. We can get along great with our customers. We can get along great with our vendors. But then if you don't provide them the service they want, the customer's going to eat up all your great entertainment and fishing trips and boat trips and dinners and whatever else you want. And you have a great rapport. We get along, rub elbows, but your service sucks. So I'm going to get some stuff over here once in a while. Right? So again, we want to elevate. This whole thing is about how do we elevate our industry in the mind of our customers, in the mind of the industry. How do we begin to cultivate a mindset among the construction industry and the industrial industry? It's a little better on the industrial side. They understand a little better. But we want to cultivate a mindset that we're a skilled craft. We can't do that if we don't have our stuff together and we keep operating the way we have and we keep just saying, well, we got to get our price lower than theirs so we'll get the job. You want to prove your worth with the experience they receive on the job site. If every job you do, you're dealing with disputes and fixing things where the foreman messed something up, and contract disputes and payment disputes, and you just always feel like you're operating in an emergency mode, that's not how we deliver an experience to build relationships. And then you want to provide value and deliver it. Because we all talk a good game. But what do we deliver? At the end of the day, what does your customer feel like when he goes home? Does he feel like you gave him a good service? Does he feel like you really care about his side of this contract that you're building the scaffold for? Or does he feel like they got their scaffold done, it came in close to on time, here comes the invoice? The next thing we do is we have to behave how we want to be treated. That's what we've been talking about. So we need to train our customers, because now our customers have been trained to treat us the way we've been behaving. I'm part of the group. I was this way too. And it took some long looks in the mirror. And it wasn't until I decided to find out if all those ideas I had were right or not that I realized, wow, I got to retrain my customers because they're used to this. So for so long, we've behaved in a way that reinforced the mindset about us in our customers' minds. And if we want that to change, then we have to train our customers how to treat us as a respected craft. And we have to behave that way. We, above all, must think of ourselves as a craft. No one else will do it for us. One of the most disheartening conversations I had when I was having a conversation with somebody at dinner one time in our industry, and I was like, man, this frustrates me. I mean, we're under the Carpenters Union, and we're barely even, if you work in union states, we don't have unions in Florida, but, you barely even have a separation of that. So you call the union hall and go, hey, I need some builders, and you get a carpenter that shows up with a wooden hammer. Who are you? I'm a builder. No, you're not. Right? I mean, the minute he steps off with a Home Depot little thin leather tool belt and a cloth pouch on his hip. You know, come on, guys. You're not a scaffold builder. And that's because we're not recognized as our own craft. And until we may believe we are, but until as an industry we begin to think about ourselves that way, to where we portray that to our customers, to where we demand that level of separation of, hey, I'm not just part of a carpenter. My guys don't even touch wood unless it's a mud sill. We don't even use wood boards on our scaffold, but they're all carpenters. Man, I got guys that couldn't screw 2 pieces of board at a 90-degree angle if you gave them $1,000. But man, they can build a good scaffold. And so we have to think about that internally as an industry so that we can convey that to our customers. One of the things that I tell, people ask me all the time, and this is something I learned a long time ago, what do you do? I don't give them my job title because that doesn't tell them anything. If you ask me what I do, I come up with solutions. That's my job. I make solutions. And so I get customers all the time. How many of you deal with customers that are just like dealing with a beaten headache all the time? Right? Because they're not just dealing with you, they're dealing with everybody else, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't deal with this anymore. And so I got a phrase that I started using. Hey, let me be your Tylenol. I'll take care of your headaches. If it's a headache you got, let me be your solution. And so what happens is I begin to lead by serving. By serving, by being attentive to their needs, by recognizing their headaches and offering solutions. And many times the solutions are outside the scope of what I'm doing in the scaffold industry. I've had customers where I've been like, hey man, can I help you do a scheduling meeting on this project? You know, maybe we can do a P60. Because here's your problem. You've got 3 different crafts trying to work in the same place at the same time, and then you want me to build scaffold there. Maybe we could all get together and talk about what we do. And like I said, this is a lot better in the industrial field. And there's the larger GCs do this, but how many of you in the scaffold industry get called into those meetings? You don't, because you're the afterthought. Right? So we begin to lead our customers by serving and paying attention to their needs. These points that I'm giving, and they're very concise, they're very short, it's not a very long presentation, but they work, and I can prove it. These methods have been proven. As Brian said, I started my own company, and in less than a year, I outgrew my investors' ability to keep me with enough material to keep working. So I had to sell. I had to find somebody to buy the company because I had customers that were relying on me. My name was on the line. In our first year, we saw an increase in our margins after implementing these things that I've shown you and these points and these methods of 12% in the first year. Over 4 years, we've seen a consistent increase each year of 5 to 10%. Just implementing these mindsets, these types of processes, investing in our people, having our customers see our value. We've become more efficient. The paperwork alone is what did the 12%. Here's the real kicker. This is the one that'll blow your socks off. We went through and we ran all the numbers on all of the jobs where we knew what all the bids were. And of the projects we were awarded, we were not the lowest bidder in 48% of them. That means value-based pricing has a huge part in our balanced approach. To be able to say that 48% of the jobs you get, you're not the lowest bidder, proves that we can take our industry and stop driving it into the ground. and just being price-driven. Like I said, there's a word for people that sell themselves. And sometimes it feels like as an industry, that's what we've become. If you're afraid of your competition, you're in the wrong business. Although, when I was talking about giving this presentation, that question was asked, well, aren't you a bit concerned about giving away some of your secrets? No, I hope and pray that all of my close competitors near me implement these things, because all it's going to do is drive the market up. So the market-based part of that pricing will go up, because it's incumbent upon me to continue to provide better service even if my competitors start doing the same thing. And now we're shifting from strictly cost-based or market-based, where we're cutting each other's throat, and we're moving the industry up, and we're all going to profit from it. So let's stop cutting each other's throats into famine and start thriving together as a respected industry. And I do have some local competition that we've proven this is true. I've sat down with them over dinners. I've shared some of these things with them. They've begun doing it, and we're rising. Together, we're rising. They're getting more jobs than they were. They'll take a job or two from me once in a while, and I'll take a job or two from them once in a while. But as a whole, in our community where we're at, we're becoming respected. We're being treated like a craft. And so I really, really believe that if we shift our mindset and we start implementing these thoughts and these processes, we can raise our industry together to levels that we thought were unimaginable at one point. Agreed? Any questions? That's the end of my short presentation. Well, I hope you take something away from it, and I hope that as an industry we really look at this and we start looking at trying to raise our industry among the community in the industrial field, in the construction field, to get us where we deserve to be. Because we are the special forces of our industry. We are a specialized craft. We prove daily that not just anybody can do this job. That not just anybody can perform the role and the function that we perform. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Yes. Oh, we got questions. We're going to get a mic around. Well, because it's streaming online. And so that's the only way that our people online can hear.
Can they hear me? What was the biggest lesson you learned from starting your own business, from saying, okay, honey, I quit? What was the biggest lesson you learned?
How little I knew. That was really the biggest lesson I learned. How little I thought I knew. But it was what we're talking about. It was, I had to find something. I mean, listen, when you're a little pea and you start a business with $100,000, you guys are in the scaffold industry, that's not very much money to start your own business with, right? And so we had to find a way to set ourselves apart. And my loving wife can tell you, she watched me sit at home and pore over this and strategize and try to figure out what can I do to set myself apart so that we can be competitive and I can become a thriving business. So the first thing I did was I chose vendors that would support me, that had a product that I actually believed in and would feel good about promoting. And so I implemented a mindset that I wish more of us did of letting my vendors realize that just how I want my customers to be loyal to me, I would be loyal to them, okay? And then what happens is they support me better. And if I need advice, if I need help, anything like that, I could turn to them and they were there. That I would gain priority if I needed something over maybe a giant competitor, that might spend millions of dollars with you every year, but they make hundreds of millions of dollars, and here I am struggling to make a couple $1 million a year, and I'm dropping some big change with you, percentage-wise. So that allowed me to get the support I needed. And then the second phase of that I identified was I needed my customer to realize I was invested in them, and that my goal really was to ensure everything I could do to ensure their success on that project. And those two things are what opened up to what this presentation was, and it was huge, huge learning for me.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd really like to throw the cue.
Okay, it was great. Thank you for allowing me the privilege and opportunity to speak with you today.